They told him to stand. The chamber was full, every tier occupied by dignitaries whose species had mastered the art of sitting without weight. Seats curved like petals around the central dais, grown from crystal and memory, each one tuned to the anatomy and status of its owner. When the human entered in uniform, the murmur rippled once, then settled. An attendant approached, eyes flicking to a slate, then to the empty places reserved for heroes, and finally to the floor beside the wall. "Observe from there," it said. "No chair. No explanation." I watched him stop, adjust the strap of his service pack, and nod. Not the nod of submission, but the nod of someone who understands procedures and has learned which battles are worth fighting. He took his place against the wall, boots aligned, spine straight, hands folded behind him. Standing was something humans knew well. The council began without acknowledging him. Voices layered over one another, translating into harmony, debating borders, reparations, shared patrols. The war had ended 6 cycles ago, and the galaxy was congratulating itself on survival. They spoke of balance, of lessons learned, of the dangers of escalation. They spoke as if escalation had been an abstract concept, a storm that passed without names. The human remained still. I saw the faint twitch at the corner of his jaw when casualty figures were projected as elegant arcs. I saw the tightening of his fingers when a delegate laughed softly and suggested that perhaps the humans had been fortunate. Fortunate to have arrived late to the stars. Fortunate to have learned restraint through others' guidance. When the agenda reached honors, the attendant finally gestured toward him. "State your designation," the voice chimed. "Sergeant Elias Ward," he said. His voice carried farther than expected, flat and calm, unadorned by translation flourish. "3rd Expeditionary Infantry." "And your commendation?" the chair being asked, settling deeper into its seat. Ward hesitated. It was brief, but I noticed. "I was told to attend," he said. No commendation was specified. A ripple of discomfort moved the tiers. Records scrolled. The attendant's slate flickered, then dimmed. "Your unit is listed as concluded," it said carefully. "Yes," Ward replied. "It concluded." They offered him a token then. A strip of alloy etched with symbols for cooperation. Still no seat. The implication hung heavier than gravity. "You may be recognized, but you do not belong among us." I felt something old stir, a memory of corridors filled with smoke and the sound of human boots running toward it. A delegate finally asked the question that had been circling like a predator. "If your unit is concluded," it said, "why are you here?" Ward did not answer immediately. He looked at the empty seats, then at the floor he had been given, then back to the council. "Because you requested a witness," he said. "And because standing is appropriate." There was polite confusion. "A witness to what?" someone asked. "To the truth," Ward said. He reached into his service pack. No one moved to stop him. Humans were still considered predictable. He withdrew a small projector, scuffed and old. When it activated, the chamber filled with light and sound and the sudden absence of air. Battle footage unfolded without filters, trenches carved into alien soil, shields failing, civilians running. A human unit advancing where no one else would, because no one else could. The council watched as the recording followed Ward's squad into a breach meant to be sealed. Watched as they held a corridor for 18 hours so evacuations could finish. Watched as names disappeared from the squad roster until only one remained. The recording ended where it began, a human standing alone, weapon empty, body shaking, refusing to sit down because sitting would mean stopping. Silence crushed the chamber. Ward powered off the projector and returned it to his pack. "You denied me a seat," he said quietly. "That's fine. My unit gave theirs up, so you could keep yours." No one spoke. No one sat comfortably again. The truth stood there with him, unyielding, demanding space without asking permission, and the galaxy felt, for once, properly small and ashamed together now. The silence didn't last long. It stretched, thick and uncomfortable, across the chamber, until a delegate finally cleared its throat. The sound was hollow, like metal straining under pressure. "Your actions are extraordinary," it said, choosing words as carefully as one might handle a live weapon. But they were tactical, yes, necessary measures of war. Ward shook his head, slow, deliberate. Necessary? Perhaps. Tactical? Only because humans measure risk differently. We do not call the deaths of innocents collateral. We call them our failure. Gasps echoed from the higher tiers. One species had never heard a human speak of failure, without shame as a cushion. Another, whose memory archives were centuries long, paled under the weight of our recklessness reframed as responsibility. Ward did not flinch. Standing against the wall, he radiated a presence that no chair, no title, could contain. They didn't obey orders, one elder from the council whispered, voice trembling. They went against protocol. Entire campaigns hinged on their disobedience. Ward's eyes scanned the chamber, finally settling on a holographic projection of the war zone. And yet, he said, voice low but unshakable, we preserved life where the galaxy had already written it off. We acted because you weren't there. You debated, you calculated, you postponed. My unit acted. That's what a soldier does when the stars demand it. The chamber reacted like a storm breaking over fragile land. Protests, whispered arguments, recorded histories projected and disputed. All of it spiraled in confusion. Never before had a single human, unarmed and standing, undone centuries of assumed authority with nothing but testimony and evidence. Your unit survived against impossible odds, a delegate managed. And yet, you were not given recognition at the time. Why? Ward's hands relaxed at his sides. Because recognition is a luxury during war. And because the people who earned it were already gone. But absence does not erase truth. It does not change courage. A series of holodisplays flickered on the walls, projecting reports, after-action logs, casualty manifests. Human names appeared, one by one, etched into the void of space, their deeds calculated in probability before Ward's intervention. The council leaned closer, horrified by the subtlety of human ethics, the way we measured success in survival, in mercy, in risk that no algorithm had ever accounted for. They didn't manipulate the records, whispered another voice. They left the truth unaltered, despite the consequences. They could have hidden their failures, embellished the wins. Ward's expression was calm, almost weary. Because truth matters more than comfort. Your histories are full of heroes who fit your narratives. Mine are full of people who survived. That is our story. A silence fell heavier than before. It was not reverence, not awe, something stranger, more dangerous. Comprehension. The council, for the first time, understood the measure of human instinct when pushed beyond reason, when morality collided with survival. And they realized, belatedly, that humans do not need permission to act decisively. The lead delegate, trembling under a weight of new awareness, asked, "Then what do you want? Recognition? Status?" Ward's lips curved faintly, not a smile but a statement. "No chair, no title, no medals. You denied me those once. I do not need them now. What I ask is simple. Remember what humans are capable of when pushed. Not the politics. Not the formalities. The truth." Screens shifted, showing battlefields emptied of life, corridors held against overwhelming odds, civilians evacuated under impossible fire. The chamber, full of beings who had debated for decades about military ethics, morality, and consequences, felt smaller, inadequate. One by one, heads bent, bodies leaning forward, eyes widening. They had underestimated humans. They had always underestimated humans. Ward stepped back from the wall, shoulders straight, expression steady. The murmur of counselors grew into a hum of realization, and the human soldier who had been denied a seat became the axis around which the galaxy reconsidered every assumption it had made about courage, loyalty, and action. He had not demanded recognition. He had demanded understanding. And for the first time, the galaxy was forced to confront the truth. Humans do not wait for permission. They stand. They act. And when they do, no one, no law, no alien protocol, no star council could ever remain silent again. The chamber emptied, But Ward did not move. He remained standing against the wall, silent, as if the absence of others amplified the weight of what had just passed. I watched from the observation deck, a mere holographic witness projected into the council's recesses, and felt something shift inside the architecture of power. Humans had always been unpredictable, but this was something different. This was deliberate, calculated, and entirely ours. Outside the hall, corridors twisted like veins, stretching endlessly through the council's orbital spire. The walls were lined with historical tapestries, digital and organic, displaying centuries of war, conquest, and diplomacy. Ward's footsteps echoed against the stone and light as he moved toward the nearest archive chamber. He needed evidence, not accolades. Recognition was a formality. Proof was survival. Inside the archive, the air hummed with the weight of memory. Holoscreens flickered, displaying records of every engagement in the last war, every human unit deployed, every casualty and heroic act. The council had edited, summarized, and abstracted most reports to fit their notions of protocol and efficiency. But Ward was here to expose every omission, every unrecorded sacrifice, every human decision that had defied the algorithmic assumptions of diplomacy. He pulled up a series of strategic overlays. Civilian evacuation paths traced in red, enemy positions mapped in blue, human units advancing where no orders had mandated, holding corridors against overwhelming odds. One by one, the records revealed decisions made in the heat of impossibility. Decisions that had saved thousands, yet remained invisible because humans were never meant to fit the neat calculations of galactic politics. Ward paused at a projection of a collapsed bridge. Hollow figures depicted civilians stranded on the far side, fire consuming the steel beneath their feet. A human squad had held the line, giving them time to escape. Casualty markers flickered. 16 dead. 16 heroes erased from history. Ward's jaw tightened, a silent oath etched into his stance. A notification chimed, an alert from the council's communications grid. It was a message from the lead delegate. Your evidence will be reviewed formally. You may be summoned. Ward ignored it. Evidence was not validation. Evidence was memory. Memory, he understood, was far more powerful than approval. Hours passed as he cross-referenced logs, every click of his wrist igniting hollow panels across the archive chamber. Patterns emerged, connections the council had missed, suppressed, or simply failed to see. Every human action had ripple effects, small at first, then cascading through the theater of war, influencing outcomes the council believed were coincidence or luck. Humans did not rely on chance. They relied on choice. Outside the spire, the galaxy turned. Fleets repositioned, treaties ratified in silence, and yet no one dared move too quickly. The memory of Ward's testimony had seeped beyond the chamber, broadcast into networks that spanned multiple systems. Aliens debated quietly in their private forums. A single human, denied a seat, had forced the entire galaxy to confront what humans could accomplish without guidance, without protocol, without compromise. Ward's projection of an unrecorded humanitarian corridor flickered on the main archive wall. He traced it with a finger, highlighting decisions made in desperation, in bravery, in defiance of logic. This is not heroism, he murmured, voice steady, though tired. This is human instinct. We act when the impossible demands action, not because it is sanctioned, because it is necessary. For the first time, the chamber outside the archive seemed small, not physically, but in the imagination. Ward realized that chairs, protocol, and rank meant nothing compared to action. History would remember those who acted, not those who sat comfortably while events unfolded. He did not need permission. He did not need a seat. As the last panel faded, Ward closed the archive with quiet authority. The room dimmed, leaving only his silhouette against the shifting lights of memory. Outside, the council's chambers would soon reconvene, but he knew the effect of his evidence could not be undone. The galaxy had seen the truth of human courage, unpolished, unacknowledged, and devastatingly effective. And as he stepped back into the spire's corridors, the murmur of ships and distant stars seemed to carry a single, undeniable message. Humans would no longer wait for a seat. They would claim the stage of history itself, standing when the galaxy dared to sit in judgment. The council reconvened at twilight, though in space. Twilight is a matter of perspective, a thin sliver of a dying star cutting across the observation ports. Ward stood again at the perimeter, still in uniform, still denied a chair, yet somehow commanding more presence than any seated dignitary. The chamber's atmosphere was taut, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The record of his evidence had spread further than anticipated, reaching even the elder delegates who had claimed oversight of history. One by one, they spoke, their voices cautious, measured, hesitant. "Your unit's actions," one began, "challenge every precedent we've relied upon. Metrics, protocols, they fail in comparison." Another interjected, voice trembling. "Yet if we acknowledge this, if we truly accept the human method, it undermines centuries of governance." Ward listened, silent, letting their fear and awe play out. He understood the stance. He had been standing outside it his entire life. They were uncomfortable not with the truth, but with its implication. Humans did not seek control. Humans did not ask permission. Humans acted, and action cannot be reconciled with bureaucracy. A translator projected an alien delegate's words directly into Ward's mind. "Your people are dangerous." He smiled faintly, though his lips were tight. Dangerous was not an insult. Dangerous was acknowledgement. It was the single word that carried the weight of centuries. Humans were unpredictable, uncontainable, unstoppable when necessary. The council proposed a token. Chairs were rearranged, one reserved, a ceremonial gesture to honor courage. Ward shook his head. He had no need of tokens. "I do not require a seat to stand for truth," he said. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. It was not defiance. It was clarity. Humans measure worth differently. They measure it in action, not symbols. A recording flickered on the main projection, showing a mission that had never been logged in any archive. Ward's squad advancing under impossible odds, a bridge of fire and debris leading to safety for civilians, the squad's faces masked by helmets, every decision a question with only one answer: survival. The delegates watched, some turning away, some leaning forward, all silent. Finally, the elder chair addressed the chamber. "It appears that what humans call instinct is something else entirely. It is moral calculus unbound by ceremony, by protocol. It is courage unfiltered." The words hung in the air, heavy with realization. Courage unfiltered. That was what had always been denied a seat, and what had always demanded acknowledgement. Ward's eyes swept over the assembly. He did not seek validation, yet he could feel it settling unevenly across the chamber. Allies, rivals, neutrals, all of them struggling to reconcile centuries of assumptions with a single human soldier standing at the edge of their perception. This was the true battlefield. Comprehension. If they understood humans fully, the galaxy itself might never be the same. Outside, the starfield shifted, fleets aligning silently in response to new directives. Humans had acted once. Now the galaxy had to decide how it would respond. The ripple of Ward's truth extended beyond words and images. It demanded strategic recalculation, political revision, philosophical reckoning. Every officer aboard every ship would remember this moment. Every historian, every student, every politician would face the shadow of one soldier who refused to sit. Ward stepped back, the weight of silence pressing on him. He had not wanted recognition, yet he understood that his presence, his standing unbowed, had created a force field of accountability. The galaxy would watch differently now. Humans had spoken without speaking, moved without moving, acted without asking, and the council would never forget it. He left the chamber slowly, the corridors echoing with a faint click of boots on metal. The observation deck above hummed with data streams, showing fleets, star systems, and civilians all in motion. One thought settled firmly in Ward's mind. The galaxy had seen the measure of human courage, and it could not unsee it. They would remember. They would respect it. Some might even fear it. As he paused before the viewport, looking out at the stars stretching endlessly, He realized the truth that the Council could not yet admit aloud. Humans did not need a seat to change the galaxy. Standing was sufficient. And standing, in the face of doubt, fear, and denial, was a force no one could contain. Because when humans rise, even the stars themselves notice. The corridors of the spire were quieter now, but the silence was not peace. It was the calm before recognition rippled outward. Ward remained at the perimeter of the observation deck, watching the galaxy unfold beneath him. The Council had dispersed, but their deliberations continued in every fleet, every government, every archive. His standing, his refusal to sit, had become a symbol, a spark igniting contemplation and unease simultaneously. Reports began to arrive within hours. Fleets re-examining engagement protocols, diplomatic bodies rewriting doctrines, historians revisiting old campaigns, questioning why human actions had gone unrecorded for so long. The ripple was unstoppable. Humans had acted decisively when the galaxy hesitated, and now the galaxy could not act without measuring the weight of that decision. Every future move would be filtered through the lens Ward had forced upon them, a soldier willing to stand alone, unrecognized, and still demand the truth. He recalled the faces of his fallen squad, the ones erased from ceremonial memory. Their silence had spoken louder than any counselor, louder than the most powerful fleets in the known sectors. Ward had carried their names in his spine, their courage in his stance. Now the galaxy carried it as well, whether it wanted to admit it or not. Recognition had been denied, but history could not ignore the truth. The Concord, the shadowy coalition of observers, analysts, and diplomats, emerged from their peripheral stations. They had watched silently, taking note of humans who acted without ceremony, without guidance, without pretense. They had no allegiance to the Council, no interest in politics, yet they understood the magnitude of what had transpired. Ward's presence, standing rather than sitting, had communicated more than the Council's entire library of records. An alert flickered on his communicator. A private transmission, flagged urgent and encrypted beyond standard clearance. Ward hesitated only briefly before activating it. The hologram that appeared was unfamiliar, a figure, human in form but older, exuding authority he had never encountered. "Sergeant Ward," it said, voice steady, "your testimony has changed everything. But standing alone is no longer sufficient. There are forces beyond the Council, beyond fleets, watching. Forces that will test the limits of human courage. Will you continue to stand?" Ward's gaze hardened, the weight of unspoken understanding in his eyes. "I stand because someone must. Not for accolades, not for approval, but because the truth demands it." The hologram flickered, as if acknowledging a decision that could reshape entire sectors. "Then know this," it said, voice grave. "The galaxy now expects humanity to act. And expectations are a heavier burden than denial. You may find that standing alone is no longer an option. Others will rise alongside you, willingly or not. And they will watch. Always." Ward powered down the transmission. Silence returned, but it felt different this time. Charged, electric, as if the universe itself waited for his next move. He understood that the Council's astonishment was only the beginning. Every fleet, every planet, every species would now measure their actions against the standard he had set. Humanity had no choice but to continue. The mask had fallen, and standing was no longer optional. Beyond the viewport, stars shifted as fleets and convoys moved with cautious precision. Humans and aliens alike recalculated strategies, hesitant yet compelled by the undeniable truth Ward had revealed. He realized, in that moment, that history would remember not the empty chairs, not the protocols ignored, but the one human who stood when no one else would. And in the deepest reaches of the galaxy, beyond sensors and charts, beyond fleets and alliances, an observation point flickered to life. Shadows gathered where no map had ever marked them, ancient eyes recording every detail, every ripple of human courage. They did not intervene yet. They waited, calculating, learning, preparing. Ward's reflection caught in the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly beyond him, silent witnesses to what had been done and to what was coming. He did not move to sit. He could not. Standing was the only way to meet the horizon. The galaxy had watched a human soldier denied a seat, and now it would watch what happens next. And somewhere in that distant darkness, a presence that had observed for millennia whispered to itself, unseen and patient, "They stand." And we will see how long that standing lasts. The silence held, heavier than any council chamber, as Ward exhaled slowly, knowing the test had only just begun.